The diner sat at the edge of Port Halcyon's rust-red docking ring, half buried under neon dust and the ghosts of old supply freighters. Its flickering sign read, "Evelyn's Eatery, real human food." Most who entered came for curiosity, not hunger. They wanted to see the human woman who smiled too politely, who served black coffee as if it were a weapon, who some whispered had once burned a battleship with her bare hands. The rumor changed depending on who told it, but everyone agreed on one thing. Her smile was dangerous. The bell above the door chimed once, thin and tinny against the hiss of the oxygen scrubbers. Inside, warm light spilled across chrome tables, and steam hissed from the old coffee machine. Evelyn Drake, 31, hair pinned in a practical knot, moved behind the counter with mechanical grace. Her voice, soft and southern, carried through the din 2 orders of chili dogs for table 3. "Don't lick the plate this time, Greth." A scaled patron hissed a laugh, his 3 tongues flicking nervously. "You humans eat fire and call it lunch." Evelyn smiled. "Builds character. Or ulcers. Depends on the day." The diner laughed. On the outer rim, laughter was rare, but her kind could coax it from anything with a heartbeat. Beneath the humor, though, her eyes never stopped scanning, every movement of a hand, every flicker of motion reflected in the windows. She could hear the hum of a blaster coil before it powered. Habit. Training never died. It just wore an apron. Outside, dust storms coiled like dragons across the horizon. She wiped a counter, humming faintly, when the doorbell chimed again. 2 children stepped in, thin, small, their clothes hanging loose, as though borrowed from a stranger's kindness. One was a boy, perhaps 8, the other a girl, barely older but standing straighter, holding his hand. They didn't belong here. Too clean for smugglers, too fragile for minors. Their boots were worn through. Evelyn blinked once, and every instinct she'd buried stirred like a waking animal. She knelt, lowering herself to their eye level. "Hey there, sweethearts. You lost." The girl shook her head. "No, ma'am. We found you." Her voice wavered, steady in courage, broken in truth. She held out a small hollow photo. It flickered to life between them, a human man, smiling in a diplomatic uniform, arm around 2 laughing children. "He's our dad," the boy whispered. The Empire took him. Around them, the diner fell silent. Even the coffee machine stilled, its hissing fading like breath caught mid-sigh. Evelyn stared at the image. Her hand trembled once, almost imperceptibly. "Took him how?" she asked, her tone still calm, like asking for a recipe. "They said he lied," the girl said. "He wanted peace. They beat him. On the stream." She swallowed, voice shrinking. "They showed it on the news. Said humans don't belong in the Senate." The words struck harder than any bullet. Evelyn had watched that broadcast 2 months ago, before she turned off the universe and decided to fry eggs for travelers. She'd seen the diplomat's death, the crowd cheering, the anchors laughing. She'd almost broken her own screen. The boy opened his hand. Tiny marbles rolled across the counter, data pearls, glimmering faintly blue. He said, "If anything happened, find the Baba Yaga." Said she'd protect us. His chin lifted, trembling. "Are you her?" Evelyn looked at him for a long time. Then, quietly, she poured 2 mugs of cocoa and set them before the children. "Drink up before it cools," she said. "It's real chocolate. Costs more than a plasma sell out here." They obeyed, small hands wrapped around warmth. The girl's shoulders eased for the first time. Around them, whispers resumed. Aliens exchanging looks, murmuring legends of the human assassin who vanished after the War of Annexes. Evelyn ignored them, eyes fixed on the twins as if cataloging every bruise, every shadow beneath their eyes. When they finished, she sat beside them and unfolded a napkin. "Your father was a brave man," she said softly. "Braver than the ones who killed him." The girl reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Real paper, yellowed at the edges. On it, drawn in uneven crayon lines, was their family standing under a tree. Beneath it, childish letters read, "Please bring him back justice." Evelyn exhaled slowly. She stared at that crude drawing as though it were a classified document. For a moment, something like grief flickered across her face. then vanished under a smile so gentle it almost hurt to see. "Sweethearts," she murmured, "justice costs a lot more than cocoa." "We have this," the boy said, nudging the pearls. "Dad said they're important." Evelyn glanced at the faint glimmers of data, encrypted imperial codes, if her guess was right. Her pulse quickened. The Empire wouldn't kill for nothing. They'd kill to silence. From the corner booth, a bulky four-armed mercenary snorted. "Lady, don't get involved. Empire'll glass this moon if you sneeze wrong." Evelyn didn't look at him. "Then we'll keep our sneezing polite," she said, her tone mild, smile unwavering. She rose, taking the children's hands. The boys' fingers were ice cold. "You two have somewhere to stay?" They shook their heads. "Then you do now." She led them behind the counter toward the kitchen. The patrons watched in wary silence. When she reached the back door, she paused, staring at the neon open sign. With a small sigh, she flipped the switch. The letters dimmed, leaving only the soft hum of the freezer and the low whistle of wind outside. A voice from the crowd called out, "You really the Baba Yaga?" Evelyn turned, eyes calm, lips curved in faint amusement. "Names are stories, darling. Some are bedtime, some are warnings." She disappeared through the door with the twins. Minutes later, the mercenary rose to leave, muttering, "Crazy human." He stepped outside and froze. The night was still, but above the diner, the stars had shifted, bright new trails cutting through darkness, small engines igniting silently. A cargo ship, old but fast, lifted from the hangar, its hull patched and marked Teapot, 73. Inside the cockpit, Evelyn adjusted her gloves, the children strapped safely behind her. The boy stared at the stars, whispering, "Where are we going?" "Shopping," she said. "For what?" the girl asked. Evelyn smiled, eyes glinting like steel beneath candlelight. "Closure." Behind them, the diner lights flickered once and died. Across Port Halcyon, comms began to buzz, Imperial bounty alerts, warnings of a human threat sighted leaving orbit. In the bar above the port, the mercenary who'd mocked her whispered to his friend, "Oh no." She said yes. The Teapot's engines roared once, bright as sunrise, before vanishing into the dark. On the counter they'd left behind, the children's drawing lay beneath a cooling mug of cocoa. The crayon words shimmered faintly in the neon reflection. "Please bring him back justice." Evelyn's voice echoed faintly through the ship's intercom, soft as a lullaby. "Buckle up, little ones. Revenge has a learning curve." Outside, the galaxy turned, unaware that somewhere in its vastness, a polite monster had just gone back to work. The Teapot drifted through the black, like a relic too stubborn to die. Its engines coughed instead of hummed, its paint flaked in constellations of rust, and its pilot hummed an old Earth tune as if flying a warship of angels. Evelyn Drake, once major, now myth, sat with her boots up, coffee steaming in one hand, starlight painting the calm geometry of her face. Behind her, two small shapes slept in hammock pods. The twins. The only quiet she respected anymore. When the console beeped softly, she didn't flinch. "Morning already," she murmured, though there was no such thing in space. She adjusted course toward the blue spiral of the Imperial frontier, Station Var, the same outpost that had ordered the diplomat's death. Her voice was even, almost sweet, as she whispered to the ship, "Let's go ruin their schedule." By the time the twins woke, the galley smelled of pancakes. The boy blinked, dazed. "We're not running?" Evelyn flipped a pancake with military precision. "Oh, sugar, we're running all right. Just toward them." The girl frowned. "You're going to kill them?" Evelyn's tone stayed soft. "Not kill. Teach. If we kill too soon, they won't learn." She handed them plates like a mother sending kids to school, except their lesson was revenge wrapped in manners. After breakfast, she briefed them like soldiers. "Step 1. Always look harmless. That's our species' greatest weapon." The boy raised his hand. "What's step 2? She smiled. Smile while lying. Hours later, they arrived at Dock 41. The station shimmered under twin suns, all glass and arrogance. Evelyn had traded her flight suit for a widow's black coat and veil. A small wreath hung from her arm, its ribbon marked in memory of peace. She disembarked alone, her posture demure, voice trembling in perfect imitation of grief. The port officer, a tall avian with silver feathers, clicked his beak, uncomfortable. Purpose of visit? Closure, she said simply. My husband's remains were processed here. The alien hesitated, scanning her credentials. I'm sorry for your loss, human. She smiled so gently it frightened him. I'll make sure someone pays for it properly. She walked past security, as though guided by morning angels. Every camera she passed flickered once and went dark. By the time she reached the administrative wing, the station's network had already begun copying itself into an endless loop. In orbit, the teapot hovered, broadcasting a children's cartoon disguised as navigation data. The twins sat in the cockpit, listening to Evelyn's calm voice through the comms. Remember, sweethearts, heroes announce themselves. Monsters just arrive. Copy Aunt Eve, the girl whispered, proud. Inside the outpost, Evelyn strolled through sterile corridors lined with banners proclaiming imperial virtue and order. She stopped before a security checkpoint, holding the wreath like an offering. The guard waved her forward, distracted by a flickering monitor showing an ancient Earth cartoon. A rabbit in shoes. Evelyn almost laughed. Humanity's ghosts worked faster than code. When she reached the central database chamber, 2 officers stood inside, laughing over confiscated Earth goods, coffee beans, chocolate, and a battered vinyl labeled Elvis Presley. One mocked the lyrics, the other mimed the dance. Evelyn's voice cut through their laughter like silk over steel. He was a king once, she said softly, stepping into the light. We tend to remember ours. They turned, startled. Who authorized? They didn't finish. 2 tranquilizer darts hummed through the air. Not fatal, not yet. She caught one before it fell and examined the needle. Still using Empire-grade sedatives? Bless your hearts. You never learned to aim. She moved with disarming grace, fingers dancing over the consoles. Data cascaded in ribbons of blue light, lists of human settlements marked cleansed for compliance. Her jaw tightened. Every name was a ghost, every coordinate a grave. She transmitted them to the teapot. The boy's voice crackled through. Is that proof? More than proof, she said quietly. It's the confession. The alarms began seconds later. Evelyn sighed. Right on time. She poured herself a cup of coffee from her thermos as storm lights flared red. Imperial soldiers swarmed the hall. Their commander, a scaled brute with golden armor, barked, "Hands where I can see them, human." She turned, smiling over her cup. "Oh, darling, I've been showing you my hand for years. You just never noticed what they were doing." A spark jumped. The overhead lights exploded in sequence, cascading down the corridor like a wave of fireflies. The soldiers opened fire blindly. Every blast reflected off the steel walls, bouncing into chaos. Evelyn moved between shadows, polite as ever, murmuring, "Languid, gentlemen." When the smoke cleared, the hall was empty except for 2 unconscious soldiers and a floating wreath spinning slowly through the air. Its ribbon now red for Dad. From orbit, the teapot began its second transmission, an ancient Earth signal piggybacked onto the Imperial network. Every screen in the sector flickered, every propaganda feed cut to static before displaying a single image. The human diplomat's death replayed beside Imperial documents, proving it had been ordered. Below, riots bloomed like wildfire. Evelyn walked calmly through the pandemonium, adjusting her veil. The port officer she'd met earlier stumbled toward her, terrified. "What have you done?" She brushed imaginary dust from his sleeve. Introduced accountability. You'll like it. Very fashionable. Back aboard the teapot, the twins stared at the broadcast, their father's face, their message spreading across the stars. The boy whispered, "They're seeing the truth." Evelyn's voice came through, steady and almost tender. "Truth is step 1. Step 2 is teaching them why it matters." "Will they stop?" the girl asked. Evelyn's silence stretched a moment too long. "They'll try to stop me first." She re-entered the ship, coat torn, expression unreadable. "Time to move, children." The polite part's over. They jumped to slip space, blue light swallowing the hull. Inside, Evelyn cleaned her gloves, her movements deliberate. The boy watched her reflection in the viewport. You didn't look scared, he said. I was, she replied softly. Fear keeps your hands steady. Regret makes them shake. He frowned. Do you regret it? Her eyes met his in the glass. Not yet. When the ship emerged, the Imperial outpost behind them burned like a silent sunrise. Evelyn switched the comms to civilian frequencies, her tone casual. This is Teapot 73, reporting minor turbulence on departure. Might want to check your orbital defense grid. It appears missing. Somewhere in the chaos, an alien journalist stammered on a live feed. Is this an official declaration of war? Evelyn smiled faintly, brushing her hair back. War? No, dear. Just an RSVP. The twins giggled, not fully understanding, but trusting the calm in her voice. Outside, fragments of metal glimmered like falling snow. She reached back, tucking the girl's blanket around her shoulders. Sleep now. We've got a busy day tomorrow. What are we doing tomorrow? Teaching them what family means. The ship drifted into the dark, engines humming like a heartbeat. Behind them, the Empire's frontier fell silent, comms cut, pride shattered, fear spreading faster than light. The galaxy would remember the widow who smiled while dismantling an empire. But for now, only the stars watched her, their reflections flickering in her coffee cup. Evelyn raised it in a quiet toast to the void. To manners, she whispered, and to monsters with good intentions. The Teapot's engines flared once, streaking toward the next horizon. And far below, across thousands of worlds, aliens stared at their screens as a soft human voice echoed through static. This isn't vengeance. This is etiquette. The Empire finally realized it was in trouble. The galaxy didn't sleep after Port Halcyon burned. News of the widow of Teapot 73 raced faster than light, tangled between rumor and nightmare. Some called her a terrorist, others a ghost. The Imperial High Council called her a malfunction in the human containment strategy. But none of them could explain how she always smiled before things went wrong. Evelyn Drake sat in silence aboard the Teapot's bridge, hands wrapped around a chipped mug of coffee. The twins slept in the corner, tangled in a blanket patterned with Earth constellations. They didn't know half the galaxy wanted them dead, or maybe they did, and just didn't care. Children have a way of trusting monsters who protect them. A voice broke through the comms, crackling with nervous static. Human Vessel Teapot 73. This is Archivist Il Moth of the Galactic Memory Corps. I request parley. The voice clicked and buzzed, insectoid, formal, terrified. Evelyn sipped her coffee. Parley, she murmured. How quaint. Il Moth's hologram shimmered into existence before her, a tall mantis-like creature cloaked in data ribbons, multifaceted eyes darting everywhere but her face. I've read your files, he said cautiously. You were trained under Project Wraith. You were supposed to be extinct. Most things you bury in the dark still grow, Evelyn replied. Why contact me, historian? He hesitated. Because the Empire won't stop. And because I think you're proving something the rest of us forgot. Evelyn leaned back. Enlighten me before my coffee gets cold. Il Moth's mandibles twitched. We believed humans were anomalies, primitive mammals who stumbled into space too early. You smiled when conquered, traded mercy for vengeance, art for weaponry. Yet you keep surviving. I want to understand why. She studied him for a long moment, then nodded toward the viewport. Look out there, Il Moth. Every world they burned, every family they broke, it's all floating dust now. You want to know why we survive? Because we remember. Her words landed heavy, like prayer in a war zone. She set the mug down, her reflection rippling in the black. Humans don't let pain rot. We pickle it, bottle it, label it with dates and names. Then one day, someone like me opens the jar. Il Moth flinched, but his curiosity overpowered his fear. You sound proud of that. She smiled faintly. Not proud. Practical. The twins stirred behind her. The boy rubbed his eyes. Who's that bug? Historian, Evelyn said. He wants to know why we do what we do. The girl yawned. Because they killed Dad. Silence. Il Moth's mandibles clicked softly. They killed millions of fathers. Yours just had the misfortune of being recorded." The boy's face hardened in a way no child should. "Then maybe they'll remember ours longer." Evelyn reached out, tousling his hair. "You see, humans are natural teachers." She turned back to Il Moth. "Tell your archives this. The Empire thinks fear keeps order. But fear only breeds memory, and memory's the sharpest blade in the galaxy." Il Moth's eyes shimmered with something close to reverence. "You're not waging war. You're giving a history lesson." Evelyn shrugged. "Same difference." Outside, the teapot drifted through a debris field of broken satellites and forgotten prayers. Evelyn guided it toward a derelict communications relay, the Empire's old propaganda hub. "They used this to broadcast their victories," she said. "Let's see how they enjoy the reruns." She slid into the pilot's chair, fingers gliding across the console like a pianist. Il Moth, patch into their archive. You'll find their crimes filed under peacekeeping initiatives. Don't flinch." He obeyed. Streams of data filled the cabin, videos, reports, cold bureaucratic signatures authorizing massacres. The children stared at the screens in horrified awe. Evelyn's jaw clenched as a recording began, a small village burning under an alien sky, human voices screaming through static. She muted the sound. "They documented everything," she whispered, "because guilt doesn't exist in systems. It only lives in people." Il Moth trembled. "You intend to release this?" "Not yet," she said. "They'll bury it again. First, we make them beg to see it." She programmed the relay to leak fragments, just enough truth to unravel trust. Across the Empire, soldiers began questioning orders. Civilians rioted. Scholars quoted human philosophers they once mocked. Those who forget history are doomed to meet humans again. Hours later, as Il Moth's hologram flickered with exhaustion, he whispered, "I think I understand the lesson now. You're not teaching vengeance. You're teaching remembrance." Evelyn met his gaze. Remembrance is vengeance when done properly. A warning light blinked red. Imperial interceptors had locked onto their coordinates. Evelyn sighed, almost fondly. History class dismissed. She turned to the twins. Time to demonstrate extra credit. The teapot roared to life, engines howling like an old god. Missiles streaked toward them, brilliant trails slicing the dark. Evelyn's voice was calm as she angled the ship through the barrage. "Brace for turbulence." The twins clung to their harnesses, eyes wide. "Are we going to make it?" the boy shouted. She grinned. "We always make it. That's the problem." The teapot dove between explosions, cutting engines to drift beneath the enemy formation. Evelyn triggered the ship's last trick, a swarm of metallic dust that reflected every targeting signal tenfold. To Imperial sensors, there were suddenly 50 teapots, all armed and angry. The interceptors panicked, colliding in confusion. Evelyn whispered, "Rule 3, never outgun the enemy. Outthink them, then apologize afterward." They cleared the field, slipping into hyperspace just as the stars folded into streaks. Silence filled the cabin. The twins exhaled in unison. Evelyn leaned back, heartbeat steady. "That," she said, "was the sound of progress." Il Moth's flickering image reappeared, written in every click of his mandibles. "You could end the Empire with this knowledge." Evelyn stared at him, her voice barely above a whisper. "We're not ending it. We're letting it end itself. That's the lesson." He tilted his head. "You humans could have ruled the galaxy. Why teach instead of conquer?" She looked toward the sleeping twins, her expression unreadable. "Because conquering's easy. Teaching takes patience, and patience terrifies tyrants." For a moment, even Il Moth seemed to understand. He bowed his head. "Then I will record this lesson faithfully." "Good," Evelyn murmured. "Just make sure they believe it's a myth. Truth survives longer that way." A soft chime echoed from the console. The transmission had spread further than intended. Half the Empire's outer colonies were now streaming footage of their own crimes, projected by human viruses that disguised themselves as bedtime stories. Evelyn's lips curved into something between pride and sorrow. Sometimes, she whispered, the best revenge is honesty with good lighting. Aiel Matha's eyes widened. You planned this. Darling, she said, stretching, I plan my coffee breaks. He hesitated, then asked the question all beings eventually did. What happens when they come for you? She smiled without warmth. Then they'll learn the final part of the lesson. He leaned forward. Witches. Her gaze drifted to the stars, where fleets already mobilized. That humans don't start wars to win them. We start them to make sure no one ever tries again. The connection cut. Evelyn sat alone in the glow of the screens, the children breathing softly behind her, the ship adrift between wars. She lifted her mug, now cold, and whispered, one more lesson then. Outside, the starlight bent, an imperial fleet closing in, engines glowing like suns. She smiled. Perfect attendance. The teapot emerged from hyperspace like a sigh escaping the dark. Before it stretched the celestial throne station, the heart of the empire, a fortress of light and arrogance orbiting a dying star. Its surface glittered like a crown carved from cruelty. Evelyn Drake had seen it once before years ago, when she'd worn a uniform and pretended that peace could be signed in marble halls. Now she came without rank, without flag, and without mercy. She sat in silence, hands resting on the console, eyes calm. Around her, the twins fastened their small vests, faces pale but steady. They had stopped asking if she would come back. Children grow up fast when the universe makes them orphans twice. Is this where Dad worked? The girl asked softly. Evelyn nodded. He tried to build something good here. She touched the controls, and the ship's engines dimmed to a whisper. We're going to bury it properly. On every frequency, the same message pulsed, an invitation to negotiate. The Emperor himself had summoned the human widow for diplomatic closure. It was bait so obvious it was insulting, but Evelyn smiled anyway. They want the monster to come to dinner, she murmured. Let's be polite guests. The docking bay swallowed the teapot whole. The air shimmered with sterilized perfection. Rows of soldiers waited, faces unreadable behind gold masks. At their center stood Admiral Vorkesh, scales burnished like weapon steel, eyes radiating contempt. When Evelyn stepped down the ramp, she carried nothing, no weapons, no armor, just a black suit, her hair tied back, her hands bare. The twins followed beside her, small but defiant. 1,000 alien lenses watched the human woman walk with the poise of a saint and the silence of a gun cocking. Vorkesh sneered. You came unarmed? Fitting. You humans hide behind sentiment because you have nothing else. Evelyn's voice was gentle, almost bored. Oh, Admiral, you still think survival's about muscle. How quaint. He leaned closer. You've humiliated our fleets, poisoned our citizens with lies, corrupted our archives. I told the truth, she interrupted. That's corruption to you? The alien hissed. You think you can defeat an empire with stories? She smiled soft as moonlight. Stories are the only things that survive empires. The soldiers flinched, not at her words, but at the way she said them, like someone who'd already measured the distance to every exit. Guards ushered her into the Hall of Judgment, an ocean of glass and gold. The Emperor waited on a throne suspended in a web of light. His voice filled the chamber, smooth as oil. Human Evelyn Drake, you stand accused of sedition, terrorism, and cultural infection. Evelyn gave a courteous bow. Cultural infection. I'll keep that one. The Emperor studied her, expressionless. Your people should have stayed on your little blue world. You were offered integration. Instead, you chose rebellion. Her tone didn't change. We chose freedom. He leaned forward. Freedom is chaos. Then chaos is better manners than your order, she said. The crowd murmured. The twins stood behind her, silent but watching everything. The Emperor's eyes flicked toward them. Children, you brought witnesses. They wanted closure, Evelyn said. I told them closure needs context. Vorkesh growled. Enough games. Kill her. The Emperor raised a hand. No. I wish to understand this human phenomenon. Tell me, Evelyn Drake, why do your kind fight so hard when defeat is inevitable? Her eyes gleamed like candlelight through storm glass. Because we're not fighting to win. We're fighting so no one forgets why we started. Something shifted in the hall. Her voice, calm and even, carried the weight of a species that refused to die quietly. You study our wars, our art, our love songs, and call us primitive. But you still flinch when we smile during tragedy. You don't understand. We don't worship survival. We worship meaning. The Emperor laughed softly. And meaning burns so easily. Evelyn tilted her head. So does tyranny. At that moment, the twins exchanged a glance, the signal. From orbit, 1,000 dormant satellites blinked awake. Once, they'd been communication buoys installed by Earth humanitarian convoys. Now their names glowed across the network as something else, Operation Afterburn. Deep beneath the station's floors, circuits began to hum. Evelyn's voice dropped to a whisper. You built your empire on control. We built our traps on your arrogance. The Emperor stiffened. What have you done? History, she said. Every Imperial AI connected to the throne began to twitch in panic, their algorithms rewriting themselves with something terrifyingly human, empathy. For the first time, the ships in orbit hesitated to obey commands. Fire control systems blinked, targeting themselves. Impossible. Vorkesh roared. Machines cannot feel. Evelyn's gaze was soft. They don't. But they can remember. We taught them what guilt looks like. Gave them recordings of every cry, every plea you muted. They recognized the voice patterns. And now they're ashamed. On the view screens, the fleet turned its guns inward, their lights dimming to morning blue. Alarms screamed through the throne room. Evelyn remained perfectly still, her tone almost apologetic. Don't worry. They'll make it quick. The Emperor rose, trembling with fury. You'll kill billions. No, she said. You already did. I'm just returning the receipts. The station shook as explosions rippled through its rings. Evelyn turned to the twins. Time to go. They ran for the corridor as flames rolled behind them. Vorkesh lunged, but she caught his wrist, twisting it until he fell. You said humans hide behind sentiment, she whispered. We don't. We weaponize it. She let him collapse and followed the children toward the hangar. Emergency sirens painted the corridors crimson. The twins clutched each other, breath ragged. Will they die? The boy asked. Yes, Evelyn said, not unkindly. But maybe they'll understand something before they do. They reached the docking bay. The teapot waited, battered and loyal. Evelyn paused at the ramp, looking back once. Through the smoke, the Emperor stood framed by firelight. Shouting orders, no one followed. You think you've won, he bellowed. She smiled faintly. No one wins in a reckoning, Your Majesty. That's the point. The teapots hatch sealed. Engines roared, propelling them away as the throne station imploded in silence. One elegant fold of light collapsing into the void. Minutes passed before anyone spoke. The twins watched through the viewport, eyes wide. The girl whispered, Are we bad people now? Evelyn's face softened. No, we're the consequence. She guided the ship through the debris, where fragments of the Empire drifted like embers from a dying pyre. A faint signal pulsed on the console. Ayal Matha's voice, weak but alive. It's over then. Evelyn shook her head. Nothing's ever over. But it's quieter now. He hesitated. What will you do with them, the children? Teach them to plant gardens, she said. Someone has to remember what peace tastes like. And you? She looked out at the stars, voice barely a whisper. I'll rest when they stop writing my name in warnings. The calm faded. The twins huddled together, exhaustion finally claiming them. Evelyn covered them with a blanket, her hand trembling slightly as she tucked it under their chins. The girl stirred. Was Dad proud? Evelyn swallowed hard. He would have been angry at what we had to do. Then why did we do it? She smiled sadly. Because sometimes love looks like fire. Silence settled over the cabin. Outside, the remains of the Empire's fleet drifted in eerie stillness. Every transmission channel now played a single human voice. The diplomat's last speech, restored and unedited. If humanity ever learns mercy from pain, maybe the galaxy has a chance. Evelyn listened, tears she'd refused for years finally catching in the corner of her eye. "Guess we're still learning," she murmured. The teapot descended toward a quiet green planet below, a refuge built by outcasts and survivors. As it entered the atmosphere, light streaked across the hull, painting it gold. The twins leaned against the window, watching dawn bloom over an untouched horizon. "Is it home?" the boy asked. "Not yet," she said. "But it will be, if you make it better than what we left." The girl reached for her hand. "Will you stay with us?" Evelyn hesitated, then smiled, a tired, beautiful lie. "For a while." They landed beside a river that shimmered like molten glass. Evelyn stepped out, feeling soil beneath her boots for the first time in years. She breathed deep, the air raw and clean. Behind her, the twins ran laughing through tall grass, their laughter the first true sound of peace. She looked to the sky, where the Empire's ashes still drifted. "Now you know the lesson," she whispered. "Never mistake kindness for weakness. It's just a long way to vengeance." The wind carried her words upward, where shattered satellites blinked faintly, recording, remembering. Somewhere among them, a single transmission escaped into the dark, addressed to anyone listening. "This isn't war. This is humanity, corrected." Evelyn turned toward the rising sun. The children called her name, their voices bright. She smiled and walked toward them, boots sinking into the wet earth, the morning light catching in her hair like fire. Far above, the wreckage of the celestial throne cracked open, releasing a final whisper through static, an echo not of defeat, but of awe. They smiled. The Emperor's last log stammered. "They smiled while ending us." And across the newborn dawn, humanity smiled again.